How's it going, guys? Let's talk about routers for a second. What exactly do they do? The ones from your internet service provider, not a whole lot. So what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be building our own. And chances are you might actually already have one and you just don't even know it yet. So let's roll the intro and I'm going to show you what I've got going on here. Alright, so what we're going to be doing here today is we're going to be building my own router. It's basically going to be connected to the modem from my internet service provider, which is Verizon, and this thing is going to manage all of the network traffic coming in and going out. Meaning you can do things like you can put your antivirus on it, so that way all of the computers on the network, they don't need their own antivirus because it's going to be monitored before it even comes into the network, and as well as going out. All the Windows 10 snooping features, I can block them, right there at the doorway. Like, Microsoft can go knock, knock, knock. Hey, what's that laptop doing? What can we do for it? And the router's going to say, get out of here. So it's going to be really, really cool. It's going to be connected to the modem, and then it's going to exit from that to all of the other computers on the network. And it's also going to include Wi-Fi, so any of my devices like my cell phone, tablet, or I have a laptop I use on the Wi-Fi, that's also going to be protected. It's not just hardline. So what we're going to be doing is this is going to be a 3-part video series. Part 1 is today. Today I'm going to be showing you basically what the components that I'm going to be using, and we're going to also, I'm going to be doing a custom case. I'm going to explain more on that, why I went with going with a custom case rather than just buying one. I'm going to show you the parts that I'm using, give you a brief rundown of why I chose those, and then we're going to go ahead and make the case. Part 2 is going to be casting the case in aluminum. As far as I'm aware, I've searched for days on the internet for anybody that has ever done this before, and so far the only thing I found is one guy that was back in 2002 or 2003, and it took him about 3 years to do it because he has his personal life, which took time, and he also did it in multiple panels. This one's going to be all one piece. So if any of you guys out there have actually seen someone else do this, please put a comment in the description with a link. I'd like to take a look at it and see however anybody else has done it. But this is going to be my version of doing it. So let's bring the camera in a little bit closer, and then we'll go ahead and show all the parts and explain more in detail. So let's go. I have decided to go with the Gigabyte GA B75N motherboard. One of the reasons is it's all black, which is something. I'm going to be putting a window onto this case. Looks pretty cool, doesn't it? It's all black. One of the reasons I went for this one in particular is because it has a mini PCIe slot, which is right here. I did not go with the Wi-Fi version because Wi-Fi versions of the motherboards are usually roughly $80 to $100 more, and with this mini PCIe slot, I can put a Wi-Fi card in here, and you can get a Wi-Fi card for anywhere from $20 to $40. They're very inexpensive, so that's why I went with the non-Wi-Fi version. It's got 2 DIMM slots, an X16 slot, it's got 2 fan headers, one for the CPU, one for system fan. Another reason I got this one is it has 2 NICs, network interface cards. I'm going to have one so that for coming in from my modem, and then this one is going to be out along with this. This is an Intel-based network interface card, or NIC. It has 2 more on it. So there's 1 in and 3 out. I have my main computer, my network attached storage, and then I'm also going to have a spare for any other thing that I decide to build in the near future, which there's more coming. So that's what we're doing as far as network. I got this actually off of eBay. It was used, fully working though, nothing wrong with it, for $26, free shipping. This motherboard was $50. I got it brand new off of, I believe I got it from Newegg for $50, which is really good. It's got 4-piece SATA connectors, which I'm only going to be needing one. It's got a USB 3 connector. It's basically, it's a motherboard. It's an 1151 socket, which is a little older generation, which is perfectly fine because I had on hand this CPU, This is the Intel Pentium G2130 processor. It is a dual core, clocked at 3.1 gigahertz. Now the reason I went when I got this for, I believe it was $55, maybe $60. The reason I went with this processor is because I've never used PfSense before, so this is all going to be a new experience for me, and you guys can come along for the ride. PfSense favors less faster cores over more slower cores. So let's say if I went and got a like a quad core AMD one, like one of the cheaper lower end ones of them, I could probably get it for about the same price with more cores. But as I said, it says that it favors less faster cores than it does more slower cores. So this is 2 cores, both clocked at 3.2 actually? No, 3.3. I forget. It's 3 point something gigahertz, which is more than enough. Plus it was $50, $50, $26. We're at $126 now. That's CPU, NIC, motherboard. For other components, I'm going with 4 gigs of Crucial Ballistic memory. I got this on sale. I know it says $18.99, but I got it on sale for $17.99 at Micro Center. It was on sale. They have a whole crap load of them. I'd check out their website, see if they have any more. I'm just going with 1 stick because that's all I'm going to need. 4 gigs is actually more than you actually need. So then we have with memory. What else we got? Oh, here we go, fans. I went with these guys. These are the G-Lid Solutions Silent 6. They are 60 millimeter by 15 millimeter because this is going to be a very small build. So I went with very small fans. These ones, I believe, with the CFM on them, it's actually not labeled on here, but it's got plenty of air to flow through. Plus, the system's not going to get very hot to begin with. I just wanted some case airflow. I do understand that these the network interface cards do get hot, so I'm going to have one cooling it directly, and then another one blowing into the rest of the fan to say, cool the memory down and give some fresh air to the CPU cooler. I have a 2-way fan splitter so that we can power these fans. Storage. This is a 128 gig OCZ Vertex 4. I'm not going to be coming anywhere near to 128 gigs. I know that there are other smaller ones, less cheaper, but I had this laying around. This was actually my very first solid-state drive that I ever purchased, and it's going to be going into this build. Plus, also another one of the features of PfSense is logging. You can actually have it set to log each and every last thing that happens as far as network traffic, and I just want to make sure that there's enough storage on here to save all the logging. What else we got here? Oh, here we go. I picked up a nice Vandal switch. We love these Vandal switches. Love that click. I got a wire for it, which is going to be, obviously custom sleeved because I can't leave well enough alone. Power supplies. I originally had decided on going with an SFX power supply from Silverstone, but this is actually the second time that I've shot this entire video. I'm actually redoing this video right now because with the SFX power supply, whereas it is very small, it's roughly about that big and roughly about that thick. It still made the case a little bit bigger than what I wanted. So for a solution to that, I went with this. Is called a Pico PSU. Pico PSU. This one in particular is a 160 watt continuous power supply. Basically what it is it has the 24 pin connector here. I'm going to be changing the yellow, so don't worry about the yellow. Then you have power in, which this one that I purchased actually came with 2 different connectors. So you can use just an external power brick, like a laptop power brick, and it comes with 2 different connectors. So that just depending on which power connector you have on your power brick. And then coming out of it, this is actually semi-modular as well. Just so you know, like this one, this has 1 Molex, which is going to be removed, and 1 SATA of power, which is what I need for the SSD. On this side is the 4-pin EPS for the CPU. You have your 24 pin here. And it's actually semi-modular too, because say like this cable here, there's a connector, and it just gets removed. Like say you're not using anything, you're going to be using some sort of onboard storage solution. Then you don't actually need that cable. You only need this one, so that you get 24 and then your 4-pin. And it's actually really, really neat, 'cause it's such a small form factor. This, of course, is going to all be sleeved. We don't want any of this because, you know, again, I can't leave well enough alone. But it's 160 watts of continuous power. This one particularly is roughly $30 to $35, depending on where you get it from. And I found a package deal for this. I got it for $70. It's a 160 watt variant of the power supply and a 160 watt power brick. So the power is actually going to be semi-external, semi-internal, and this is going to distribute everything. So basically, I'll give you guys a little demonstration here. Don't want to scratch the acrylic. This plugs into your 24 pin, and then you have your, oops, I'll tangle it up now. The 4 pin for the CPU, which goes in right there. And then you have a cable here for with a Molex and a SATA. I'm just going to be using one for the SD card. I'm actually going to be setting it like right up here, so it looks pretty. And you know, that's basically it. Like, look how clean that looks. Like, depending on where you put this, you know, you could run it under the motherboard or something like this. It's very, very clean, very, very small form factor. Exactly what I was looking for. I was looking at at cases for, you know, roughly $80 or so that were perfect. They accepted an SFX power supply, but they just weren't exactly small enough for what I was looking for. So I'm doing my own, and if you guys remember, for the guys who have been watching for a while, I guess we're coming up on almost a year ago now. I posted a video for melting down metal. I'll leave a link in the description for that video. That was determined to be a successful failure, is what we, a failed success is what we determined it was. However, recently I have been playing with that. I have, I've revisited that, and I've actually been met with some very nice success. Let me shake this real quick. These used to be car parts, and they are now molten. They are now little ingots of clean aluminum, although crap has been scooped out of them, and these can be remelted to whatever I need. So that's going to be in part 2. So for the case, we're going to be doing what's called the lost foam technique. I'm going to be making a case out of pieces of foam. You can get these at the dollar store. So we're going to be making it out of that, and then I'm going to be basically submerging that in plaster of Paris, and then melting down the aluminum, and you pour the aluminum in it, and what's going to happen is the foam is going to immediately disintegrate, because aluminum melts at I believe it's 16 or maybe 1800 degrees Fahrenheit. Right around here somewhere is the Celsius. But it's immediately incinerate the foam, and then the aluminum is going to take its place. And once it cools down, we can take it out, and we'll have, our rough casting of the case. And I just got to do a little bit of finishing work on the outside. Feet for it, I'm just going to be using some of these rubber stick-on feet that you can get at dollar stores, Home Depot and stuff like that. This right here is the plaster of Paris I got. This is $10 at a craft store, so it's fairly money efficient. As far as you guys might actually have one of these and don't even know it yet, if any of you are coming from a pre-built system, like say an HP machine or something like that, then you went and built yourself your own custom computer, and now that thing is just sitting in a closet, well, you can actually install you format your hard drive and install PfSense on it, and depending on how many of the network ports that you have, you just install PfSense on it. Now you've got your own. Now you also have your own router. I'm just decided to go with this because I want as small as possible. guys, let me show you what I have so far. So far I've got bottom, the base, both sides, front, back, the I/O shield portion removed, and one fan hole. I decided to go with one fan hole, one fan as opposed to two, because once this is on there, I noticed that, let's see if we get a better shot. Once this is on there, there's not much clearance. I was going to have it just blowing just like this, straight at the heatsink on the network card. But once this goes on, that much clearance. Now that's going to be, whereas that would be fine. It's going to be very noisy because the air is going to be blowing in and it's going to be basically smacking against this and then coming and then spreading out from this very small section here, and that's going to get very, very noisy. So what I did, if we go here, put that up like that, you can see right in here, I've got half of it blowing on the card, which is going to blow right about here, and then it's going to, cool the card. There's going to be some airflow there. And then the other side is going to be blowing through the motherboard, and I'm going to have the memory stick in this slot, so it's going to have some airflow blowing across it. As far as ventilation is concerned, that is going to be an afterthought. I'm probably going to end up either drilling or putting, probably just going to end up getting a drill and putting some sort of neat little design on the side here as an exhaust. As an exhaust hole, that way we'll have lots of positive pressure in here and it'll just blow out there. I'm going to put some sort of neat little design on that. The rear, this is the rear. I've got the I/O shield cut out on it. Fits on there perfect. See if we can get you a shot from the other side. See that right there? Looking good. Looking good. And the network card. Ooh, you know what? Now that I think of it, thank you guys. I'm gonna have to cut a hole here for the ports to show out. But this is a little wobbly here, so I just put this. So I just marked off a spot, and where'd it go? Here it is. This guy right here. This is gonna go right here. So that way, when the back is on, it's gonna be right here, like that. And then once it's all together, I'm going to drill a hole through this. It's going to be permanently a part of this. I'm going to drill a hole in it, so that way we can put a nut and a bolt through here, and it's not going to wobble around like that. I got to go cut these holes out. Also with the fan, I used the CNC machine. I put a 1mm recess into the foam, so that way it's actually going to be recessed a little tiny bit. As far as the lid is concerned, I'm going to put a piece of acrylic over top of it. Once it's all said and done, it's going to have to be an after the fact. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pop this in the CNC machine, and I'm going to carve an 1/8 inch groove, probably halfway through the thickness and 1/8 inch deep, all the way around the perimeter of the top. So that way a piece of acrylic is just going to rest inside there. I'm going to put some sort of fabric inside there, so it's a nice little press fit. It's not going to get scratched, and it's going to look nice. So that's what the lid's going to be like. You're going to be able to see inside it. I'm going to have to order probably white LEDs. I don't know. I've done a lot with white LEDs lately. Let me know what you guys think. What color lighting should we be? And as far as the SSD is concerned, I was thinking putting it right here, like that. But then, you have these slots here, so actually, you know what? I probably still could put that there. You know what? I was thinking of putting it like leveling it like this, but you know what? I think I am going to put it here, just like that. It'll get bolted to the side panel, and it'll be, since it's aluminum, it'll give it some heat dissipation, which will be good. And then of course the CPU fan is going to be here blowing down and spreading the air, so it'll have some airflow. Plus with this fan blowing this way, the inside of the case is going to have plenty of circulation. It's not going to be a problem. Plus this system's not going to get hot at all anyway. Now this foam board does have a paper cover on it, and when I go and I pour the aluminum, there's a chance that not all of the paper is going to get burned off, and that's going to show up in the final finish. So what I'm going to do is, you can peel it off, but you don't always get all of it. And sometimes when you go, you gotta like go like this and peel it off. You sometimes nick the edge, and that's going to show up in the final cast as well. So what I'm going to do is, since it's just paper, I'm going to soak this in some soap and water, so that way the paper will soak up and it will release from the foam and it will just drift away. No problem. So I'll just rinse it off with a little, one of them things. I'll just blow it off. Battery's about to get dead. Gotta charge this battery up so I can finish this video. Oh, and as far as mounting the motherboard is concerned, let me show you this, guys. What I did was I put some holes, and then I got these guys for standoffs. They've got a large head on them, and what I did was I recessed a little bit into the foam, and I put them in there, holding them in with some hot glue. And the hope is that when the aluminum gets poured, it will surround the head of the screw and then hold it in place. If that doesn't work, then I'm going to have to figure something else out. Shouldn't be a problem though. It's just a matter of drilling and tapping and put some conventional standoffs. But that's that for this. I'm going to go ahead and get this paper off, and then we're going to come back and we're going to do some more time lapsing. I'm going to use some hot glue to glue this bad boy together. So stay tuned. Be back in a bit. Alright guys, I apologize. I got this thing all back together and I heard the shutter go off on the camera, which means I forgot to hit the record button. But basically all I really did was hot glue it together. You didn't miss much. The only thing worthwhile of noting is after I got all the pieces together, I went through, you can see, I went over all of the edges with some hot glue. I filled in all the edges because we don't want any gaps. All the gaps will show up in the final cast, and say if there's a gap right here, then there's going to be a gap right there during the cast. It's not, for one thing, it's not going to be as sturdy. It's not going to make that much of a big deal, but it's still going to have a gap there, and you don't want that. I did it for the inside and on the outside as well. I filled in all of the gaps, and when I was cutting the hole for the fan, I knew I should have used my machine for this, but apparently the razor blade of my X-Acto knife is getting dull, and instead of getting a good cut, it kind of made it like a jagged cut. It like caught the foam and would like rip it as opposed to cutting through it. So I just filled in the outer circumference with some hot glue, and that's okay if it's not too pretty looking, because you can always remove metal. You can't really add metal back. So it's okay if it's like that, because once it's all finished and cast, I can go back in here with a file or something like that and clean that up and get that to be a good perfect circle. Put in this little tab here. That is for, like I said before, that's for the network card, so I can go in here and get that to sit straight. It'll go like that, and there's going to be a hole through here. Once it's done, I'm going to drill a hole through there, so that way you can get nice and mounted, nice and neat. I added the hole in the back for the ports to stick out. You can see right there, nice and clean. So that's pretty much that. Now what's going to happen next is I'm going to mix up some plaster, and this is going to go into a container, and it's going to get completely submerged with plaster. I actually have to add a couple of pieces of foam sticking out. It's actually going to be upside down like this. I got to add some foam sticking out of it, so that way I have something to pour the aluminum into. So they're going to stick out here and here. I'll pour into one, and once this side starts to fill up, that's how I know it's full. And then we'll leave it sit, and we'll let it all cool down, let the aluminum shrink down, and then we'll break it out of its mold and see what we got. So to start off, when you mix up your plaster and you pour it, there is going to be air bubbles on the surface, and that'll show up, which isn't that big of a deal, because I already know that there's going to be some finishing work that needs to be done. It's going to be sanded, because this thing's going to be polished. If this thing was going to be painted, I wouldn't be too worried about it, because any dips in like you could just fill in and then go ahead and do your painting. Anything that's sticking out is fine because you can sand it off, but since we're going with polished, any dips in is no good because that's going to show up on the final polish and it's not going to look right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix up a small batch of plaster first, and I'm going to paint it onto the edge. The actual way to do it is to just go ahead and pour it into a container with some plaster and put it into a vacuum chamber so it'll suck all the air out, and all those air bubbles will come to the surface and get sucked out. But I don't have one of those, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to paint on just a real thin layer of plaster, so that way it'll get rid of some of the bubbles, and then we're going to go ahead and fill up the container, and this whole thing is going to get submerged in plaster, and we're going to leave it sit for like a day or so to make sure the whole thing is dry completely all the way through. And then we're going to go ahead and melt the plaster, pour it on, and we'll see what we got. So let's get to that. We'll do some more time lapse. More time lapse. Alright guys, here's a little bit of a better view. As you can see, I ran out of plaster. 2 buckets and a half of that. And I got this. I ran out. But that's completely okay. The case is completely submerged. I shook it up and down, made sure that all the bubbles that were inside, since I'm doing it upside down, there's going to be some air trapped inside here. As I don't know if you saw real quickly, I poked a couple holes in there. That was for ventilation, to get the air from inside the case out as it was filling up from underneath. Now you can see right here it is just barely under the surface, which is completely fine for this situation because, oops, sorry about the light. I do have my casting sand, so once this is dry, the rest of this is going to get filled up with my casting sands. Basically what casting sand is, it's a very fine sand. I think it's pretty much silica sand, and it's also got a bunch of other stuff mixed into it. Like clay is one of the other primary ingredients. The stuff that I have has a whole bunch of other cool stuff in it. It's got a melting point of 3,600 degrees Celsius because of all the stuff that's added into it. And basically, it's compactable. Like you can get a handful of it, pack it in your hand, and it'll keep that form. So we're basically going to put some over there, pack it down, put some more on, pack it down, and we're just going to keep layering it up like that until this whole thing is full. And these things here, as you in the time lapse, these are called sprues. I forgot to add them to it. Basically what's going to happen is when I pour the aluminum, how's the aluminum going to get inside there? It's going to go through this. It's going to be the sand is going to be packed up, and it's going to have I'm going to have a little can I'm going to put over there and pack some more sand in it, so that way it's got basically a funnel. So you pour it in here, it disintegrates this, goes down and melts up the foam for the case, and the aluminum takes its place, and eventually once it gets full enough it's going to start coming up out of here, which is what we want. That means that it's called the investment because you're investing foam and you're getting a product out of it. So that means the investment is completely gone and it's full of aluminum, and then we just we sit and wait till it cools and it hardens. Then we can break it out. I'm probably going to do what's called quenching. Once it's all filled up in there, I'm going to leave it sit for about the thing can stay hot for like a couple of hours. So after about 20 minutes, maybe half hour or so, we're going to take this whole block and we're going to dump it into a bucket of cold water, and that's going to quench it, and all the plaster is going to break up, and most of it's going to fall off. Some of it we have to clean off manually. This is one of those things where, do as I say, don't do as I do. If you're going to try this, don't use a cardboard box. I'm going to use a cardboard box because, I don't have anything else. I don't have any more money to make the wooden frame. But that's what's going to keep things interesting. So keep an eye out. I might burn my house down. Yay. Nah, I'm just kidding. We're not going to do that. But it's going to be awesome when it's done. This is going to end it for part 1. Stay tuned for part 2, where we actually melt the aluminum and cast it. That is going to be probably next week. I've got a lot of shit going on. But yeah, next week that'll be coming. I'm going to go ahead and edit this on my laptop, because that's still down. And we'll see you next week. Take it easy, guys.